Rhett opened the door and his world stopped. Before him stood a woman, wounded, exhausted, but in her eyes burned a fire, the fire of survival. Rhett hadn't looked into anyone's eyes like that in years, and in that moment, in that single second, something changed. He didn't know her name yet. He didn't know where she came from, but his instincts told him something. This woman was the one who would change him. "Help me," the woman said, her voice stronger than a whisper. Rhett stepped back and opened the door wider. "Come inside." The woman stumbled. Rhett reflexively reached out and caught her. Her hands were cold, ice cold. Her body was trembling. Rhett pulled her inside and closed the door. "Sit," Rhett said, his tone gruff but his face soft. The woman collapsed into the wooden chair. Her head dropped forward. Her hair covered her face, wet and tangled. Rhett walked to the hearth and stoked the fire. Flames rose, the room warmed. Then he got a glass of water. "Drink," Rhett said, extending the glass. The woman took it. Her hands were still shaking. She drank the water, almost unable to swallow. She coughed. Rhett stepped back and gave her space. "Your name?" Rhett asked. No pressure in his voice. The woman lifted her head. Her eyes met Rhett's. They were green, storm green. "Isla," she said slowly. "Isla Bennett." Rhett nodded. "Rhett Lawson." Lisa lowered her gaze. "They're coming after me," she said quietly. "Just one night, I'll leave in the morning." Rhett's jaw tightened. "Who's coming?" Isla didn't answer. She just clasped her hands together. There were bruises on her wrists. Rhett saw them, his brows furrowed. "You're staying here tonight," Rhett said firmly. "Tomorrow we'll figure it out." Isla looked up at him. "You don't even know me." "I don't need to," Rhett said simply. Silence fell between them. The fire crackled in the hearth. Outside, the river murmured in the darkness. Isla's breathing slowly steadied. "There's a room in the back," Rhett said, pointing down the hallway. "Clean blankets, a lock on the door if you need it." Isla's eyes widened. "A lock?" "Your choice," Rhett said. "You're safe here, but I understand if you don't believe that yet." Isla swallowed hard. Something in his voice made her want to trust him, but trust was dangerous. "Thank you," she whispered. Rhett nodded and turned away. Isla stood slowly, her legs unsteady. She walked down the hallway, each step careful. The room was small but clean. A narrow bed, a window with thick curtains, and yes, a lock on the inside of the door. She closed the door and turned the lock. The click echoed in the silence. Isla sat on the edge of the bed, her body ached everywhere. But here in this small room, she felt something she hadn't felt in months. She felt safe. Just a little. Just enough. In the main room, Rhett stood by the fire and stared into the flames. He thought about the bruises on her wrists. The way she had flinched when he reached for her. The fear in her eyes. He knew that look. He'd seen it before. In the eyes of animals caught in traps. In his own reflection years ago when he'd lost everything. "Who hurt you?" Rhett muttered to the fire. The fire didn't answer. But Rhett made a decision in that moment. Whoever was coming for Isla Bennett, they'd have to go through him first. He poured himself coffee and sat in his chair. He wouldn't sleep tonight. Not until he was sure she was safe. Morning light crept through the windows. Isla woke with a start, her heart racing. For a moment she didn't know where she was. Then she remembered the river ranch, the man named Rhett, the lock on the door. She sat up and listened. Silence. No heavy footsteps, no angry voices, just the sound of birds outside and the distant rush of the river. Isla unlocked the door and opened it. The hallway was empty. She stepped out carefully, but there was no threat, just the smell of coffee and something else. Bread, maybe? She walked into the main room. Rhett stood by the stove, his back to her. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that touched his collar. "Morning," Rhett said without turning around. "Coffee's ready." Isla hesitated. "How did you know I was there?" "Floorboards creak," Rhett said, glancing over his shoulder. "You're safe. No one came." Isla's shoulders sagged with relief. She sat at the table. Rhett brought her coffee and warm biscuits with butter. His eyes stared at the food. "When did you last eat?" Rhett asked, sitting across from her. "I don't remember," Isla admitted. "Then eat," Rhett said. "We'll talk after." Isla picked up a biscuit. It was warm and soft. She ate slowly at first, then faster. Rhett sipped his coffee and watched her quietly. When she finished, Isla met his gaze. "Why are you helping me?" "Because you needed help," Rhett said simply. "You don't know me," Isla repeated. "I could bring trouble." "You already brought trouble," Rhett said with a slight smile. "But you're not the danger. Someone else is." Isla's eyes filled with tears. She blinked them back. "I don't want to put you in danger." "That's not your choice to make," Rhett said gently. "Tell me what happened. Who hurt you?" Isla looked down at her hands. The bruises were darker now. "My husband," she said quietly. "His name is Garrett. Garrett Bennett." Rhett's jaw clenched. "Where is he now?" "I don't know, Izette. I ran 3 nights ago. I've been hiding, moving, but he has friends. Men who help him, men who hunt for him. He won't stop until he finds me." Rhett leaned back. He was silent for a moment, then he said, "He won't find you here." Isla looked up, startled. "You can't promise that." "I can," Rhett said, meeting her eyes. "And I do." Isla wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him. "I'll leave today," Isa said, standing up. "I've already stayed too long." "Sit down," Rhett said, his voice calm but commanding. Isla hesitated, then sat. "You're not leaving," Rhett said. "Not until you're strong enough. Not until you have a plan." "You don't owe me anything," Isla said, her voice breaking. "Maybe not," Rhett said, "but I'm giving it anyway." Isla stared at him. This stranger was offering her something she hadn't had in years: protection, safety, kindness without conditions. "Why?" she whispered. Rhett looked into the fire. "Because once someone helped me when I needed it most, and I swore if I ever got the chance I'd do the same." Isla felt something crack inside her, like a shell around her heart, beginning to split. "I don't even know how to thank you," she said. "Then don't," Rhett said, turning back to her. "Just rest, heal, and when you're ready we'll figure out what comes next, together." Isla nodded slowly. For the first time in a long time she allowed herself to hope. Maybe she had found more than shelter. Maybe she had found an ally. And though neither of them knew it yet, maybe she had found something even more. The days that followed moved slowly. Like honey dripping from a spoon, Isla found herself settling into a rhythm she hadn't known was possible. Mornings began with coffee at the small wooden table. Rhett never asked questions. He simply handed her a cup and sat across from her in comfortable silence. "You don't have to stay inside," Rhett said on the 3rd morning. "The ranch is safe. No one comes here without me knowing first." Isla looked toward the window. Sunlight streamed through the glass, warm and golden. She hadn't felt sunlight on her face in days, maybe weeks. "I'd like that," she said quietly. Rhett nodded. "I'll be working near the river, fixing the old fence line. You can come if you want, or stay here. Your choice." Your choice. Those 2 words meant more to Isla than he could know. For years she'd had no choices. Every decision had been made for her, and every wrong move had been punished. "I'll come," Isla said. Rhett's expression softened. "Good." They walked together down the dirt path toward the river. The air smelled of pine and wet earth. Birds called from the trees. Isla breathed deeply, filling her lungs with something other than fear. Rhett worked on the fence while Isla sat on a smooth rock near the water. She watched the river flow, endless and unbothered. It reminded her of something her mother used to say: "Water doesn't fight, it just keeps moving." "You're quiet," Rhett said, glancing over at her. "I'm thinking," Isla said. "About?" Isla hesitated. "About how strange it feels to be safe." Rhett set down his hammer and walked over to her. He sat on a nearby rock, careful to keep some distance between them. "You've been afraid a long time," Rhett said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Isaiah admitted. "Even before Garrett. My father was the same. Angry, violent. I thought marriage would be different. I thought I could escape." She laughed bitterly. "I just traded one prison for another." Rhett was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "My father was a hard man too, not violent, but cold. He didn't believe in second chances, didn't believe people could change." Isla looked at him. "Do you believe that?" "I believe people can change if they want to," Rhett said. "But most don't want to. They'd rather stay the way they are and make everyone else miserable." Isla nodded slowly. "Garrett won't change. He'll come for me, and when he does, When he does, I'll be here, Rhett said firmly. Ela met his eyes. Why are you doing this? Really? Rhett looked out at the river. Because I know what it's like to be alone, to feel like the world gave up on you. And I know what it's like when someone finally doesn't. He paused. A long time ago I was in a bad place. Lost my wife to fever. Lost my land to debt. I had nothing. A man named Samuel took me in, gave me work, didn't ask for anything in return. He saved my life. Where is he now? Isla asked softly. Dead, Rhett said. 5 years now. But before he died he told me something. He said, the only way to repay kindness is to pass it on, so that's what I'm doing. Isla felt tears prick her eyes. I'm sorry you lost him. Me too, Rhett said. But his words stuck. And when you showed up at my door, I knew what I had to do. They sat in silence for a while, the river singing its endless song. Ela felt something shift inside her. Not trust, not yet, but the possibility of trust. Thank you, Isla said, for seeing me as more than just broken. You're not broken, Rhett said, looking at her. You're surviving, there's a difference. Isla smiled, just a little. It was the first real smile she'd managed in months. But then, just as quickly as it came, it faded. A sound echoed from the trees. Hoofbeats, distant but unmistakable. Isla shot to her feet, her body going rigid. No. Rhett stood immediately, his hand going to the knife at his belt. How many? I don't know, Isa whispered, her voice shaking. But they found me. They always find me. Rhett's jaw set. Go back to the house. Lock the door. Don't come out until I tell you. What are you going to do? Isa asked, panic rising. What I have to, Rhett said, his voice calm and steady. Isla wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. This wasn't a man who made empty promises. This was a man who kept them. She ran back to the house, her heart pounding. She locked the door and moved to the window, peering through the curtains. 2 riders appeared at the edge of the clearing. One was tall and thin, with a cruel face. The other was stockier, with a scar running down his cheek. Isla didn't recognize them, but she knew what they were. Garrett's men. Rhett stood in the center of the clearing, arms crossed, waiting. The tall man spoke first. We're looking for someone, a woman, brown hair, green eyes, goes by the name Isla. Don't know her, Rhett said flatly. The stocky man smirked. You sure about that? We tracked her here. We know she came this way. Lots of people pass through, Rhett said. Doesn't mean I know them. The tall man leaned forward in his saddle. Listen, friend, we don't want trouble, we just want the woman. Her husband's real worried about her. I'll bet he is, Rhett said, his voice cold. The stocky man's smirk faded. You calling him a liar? I'm saying if she ran from him she had a reason, Rhett said. And I'm saying she's not here, so you can turn around and leave. Now. The tall man's hand moved toward his gun. And if we don't, Rhett didn't flinch, then we'll have a problem. For a long moment no one moved. The air was thick with tension. Isla's breath came in short, shallow gasps as she watched from the window. Finally the tall man pulled his hand back. This ain't over, he said. We'll be back, and when we come back we'll bring more men. You do that? Rhett said. Won't change my answer? The 2 men turned their horses and rode off, disappearing into the trees. Rhett stood there for a long moment, making sure they were truly gone. Then he turned and walked back to the house. Isla opened the door before he reached it. They'll come back, she said, her voice trembling. They'll bring more men, they'll kill you. Maybe, Rhett said, but they won't take you. Isla shook her head, tears streaming down her face. You don't understand. Garrett doesn't give up, he'll burn this place to the ground if he has to. Then let him try, Rhett said, stepping inside. I'm not afraid of him. You should be, Isaiah whispered. Rhett closed the door and looked at her. Really looked at her. I faced worse than angry men, Isla, and I'm still here. Isla wanted to believe him, but fear was a hard thing to shake. It lived in her bones now, deep and unshakable. What do we do? She asked. We prepare, Rhett said. And we don't run. Running doesn't solve anything. It just delays the inevitable. Isla nodded slowly. She didn't know if she agreed, but she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't alone anymore. The threat changed everything. Sala couldn't sleep that night. Every sound made her jump, every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind against the window. She sat in bed with her knees pulled to her chest, waiting for riders to burst through the door. But they never came. By morning, exhaustion had won. Isla finally dozed off just as the sun rose. When she woke, it was nearly noon. She found Rhett outside chopping wood. "You should have woken me," Isla said, stepping onto the porch. "You needed rest," Rhett said, not stopping his work. The axe came down hard, splitting the log cleanly. "I can't just hide while you work," Isla said. Rhett paused and looked at her. "Then don't hide. Help me." Isla blinked. "Help you?" "There's work to be done," Rhett said. "If trouble's coming, we need to be ready. I could use an extra pair of hands." Isla nodded slowly. "What do you need?" Over the next few days they worked side by side. Rhett taught Isla how to check the animal traps, how to stack wood properly, how to mend the weak spots in the fence. The work was hard, but it felt good. It gave Isla something to focus on besides her fear. And slowly something else began to grow between them. Not just trust, but understanding. They spoke more, shared stories, laughed even. One evening as they sat by the fire, Isla asked, "Do you ever get lonely out here?" Rhett stared into the flames. "Sometimes, but lonely is better than miserable." Is it? Is it?" Isla asked. Rhett glanced at her. "You tell me." Isla thought about it. "I was lonely in my marriage, surrounded by people but completely alone. At least here, the loneliness is honest." "Honest loneliness," Rhett repeated. "I like that." Isla smiled. Then her smile faded. "They're going to come back, aren't they?" "Yes," Rhett said. "But we'll be ready?" "How can you be so calm?" Isla asked. "Because fear makes you stupid," Rhett said. "And I can't afford to be stupid right now." Isla looked at him. Really looked at him. This man who had taken her in without question, who had stood up to armed men for a stranger, who was now preparing to fight for her again. "Why do you care so much?" Isla whispered. Rhett met her eyes. "Because you deserve better than what you've had." Something shifted in that moment. Isla felt it. The pull toward him, something deeper than gratitude. She didn't know what to call it yet, but it was there, undeniable. Before she could respond, a sound cut through the night. Voices, men's voices, and they were getting closer. Rhett stood immediately. "Get inside, lock the door." "No," Isla said, standing too. "Not this time." "Isla?" "I'm done hiding," Isla said firmly. "If they want me, they'll have to face me." Rhett's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He just nodded and handed her a heavy iron poker from beside the fireplace. "Stay behind me." They stepped outside together. This time there were 4 men, the same 2 from before, plus 2 more. One of them was Garrett. Isla's breath caught. She hadn't seen him in weeks, but he looked exactly the same. Tall, broad-shouldered, with cold blue eyes and a cruel smile. "There you are," Garrett said, dismounting from his horse. "I've been looking everywhere for you, darling." "Don't call me that," Isla said, her voice shaking but strong. Garrett's smile widened. "Still got some fight in you. I always liked that about you. At first anyway." Rhett stepped forward, putting himself between Isla and Garrett. "She's not going with you." Garrett looked at Rhett with amusement. "And who are you?" "Her new protector." "Something like that," Rhett said. Garrett laughed. "You think you can stop me? You think this ends anyway except with her coming home?" "She is home," Rhett said coldly. Garrett's smile vanished. "You're making a mistake, friend." "I'm not your friend," Rhett said. "And the only mistake here is yours. You should leave while you still can." One of Garrett's men stepped forward, hand on his gun. "You're outnumbered." "Numbers don't mean much when you're fighting for the wrong reason," Rhett said. Garrett's expression darkened. "Last chance. Give her to me and I'll let you live." "No," Rhett said simply. Garrett nodded to his men. They started to advance, but before they could get far, a voice called out from the trees. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." Everyone turned. An older man stepped into the clearing, rifle in hand. Then another man appeared, and another. 5 men in total, all armed, all standing with Rhett. Rhett glanced at them and nodded. These were his neighbors, men he'd helped over the years, men who owed him. Garrett looked around, realizing he was now outnumbered, his face twisted with rage. "This isn't over," he spat at Isla. You're still my wife. Not for long, Isla said, her voice steady now. I'm filing for divorce, and if you come near me again, these men will make sure you regret it. Garrett stared at her, fury burning in his eyes, but he was smart enough to know when he'd lost. He mounted his horse and glared at Rhett. You'll pay for this. I'm not afraid of you, Rhett said. Garrett and his men rode off, disappearing into the darkness. The neighbors stayed until they were sure the threat was gone, then tipped their hats and left. Isla stood there, trembling, not from fear this time, but from relief. It was over. She was free. Rhett turned to her. You okay? Isla nodded. Then, without thinking, she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. Rhett hesitated for just a moment, then held her. Thank you, Isla whispered, for everything. You don't have to thank me, Rhett said quietly. But Isla pulled back and looked up at him. Yes, I do. You gave me something I thought I'd never have again. You gave me hope. Rhett looked down at her, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between them, something that felt like the beginning of something more. The weeks that followed were the quietest Isla had ever known. Garrett didn't return. The divorce papers were filed with help from the town lawyer. Slowly, carefully, Isla began to believe she might actually be free. But freedom brought new questions. Questions she hadn't allowed herself to ask before. What now? Where would she go? What would she do? And the question that scared her most, what did she feel for Rhett? They hadn't spoken about the embrace, about the way she'd held him that night, or the way he'd held her back. They'd simply returned to their routine, coffee in the mornings, work during the day, quiet evenings by the fire. But something had changed. The air between them felt different, charged. Every accidental touch, every shared glance carried weight. One evening, as Isla prepared dinner, Rhett came in from outside. He stopped in the doorway, watching her. What? Isla asked, turning to him with a smile. Nothing, Rhett said. Just, you look at home here. Isla's smile faded slightly. Is that okay? More than okay, Rhett said quietly. Isla set down the knife she'd been using and turned to face him fully. Rhett, I need to ask you something. Ask, Rhett said. What happens when the divorce is final? Isla asked. What happens to me? Rhett crossed the room and stood before her. What do you want to happen? I don't know, Isla admitted. I've spent so long just trying to survive, I never thought about what comes after. You can stay here, Rhett said. As long as you want. As what? Isla asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Your guest? Your employee? Your... She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Rhett reached out slowly and took her hand. His touch was gentle, careful, as whatever you want to be. Isla looked down at their joined hands. What if I don't know what I want? Then we'll figure it out, Rhett said. Together. Isla looked up at him. His eyes were warm, steady. She realized with a start that she trusted this man, truly trusted him, not just with her safety, but with her heart. I'm scared, Isla admitted. Of what? Rhett asked. Of feeling too much, Isla said. Of wanting too much, of losing it all again. Rhett squeezed her hand gently. You won't lose me, Isla. I'm not going anywhere. You can't promise that, Isla said, tears pricking her eyes. Maybe not, Rhett said. But I can promise I'll try. Every single day I'll try. Isla felt something break open inside her. All the walls she'd built, all the defenses she'd carefully constructed, crumbled. She stepped forward and rested her forehead against his chest. Rhett wrapped his arms around her and held her close. They stood there for a long moment, just breathing together. I think I'm falling for you, Isla whispered. Rhett's arms tightened around her. I know I'm falling for you. Isla pulled back just enough to look up at him. Is that crazy? After everything? Maybe, Rhett said with a small smile. But the best things usually are. Before Isla could respond, Rhett leaned down and kissed her. It was soft, tentative, asking permission. Isla answered by kissing him back, her hands coming up to rest on his chest. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. That was, Isla started. Long overdue, Rhett finished. Isla laughed, a real laugh, full of joy. Yes, it was. But their moment was interrupted by a sound outside. Hoofbeats, again. Rhett tensed immediately. Stay here. No, Isla said, grabbing his arm. We face it together. Remember? Rhett looked at her, then nodded. They went to the door together. But this time it wasn't Garrett. It was the sheriff from town along with 2 deputies. Evening, Rhett, the sheriff said, tipping his hat. Miss Bennett. Sheriff, Rhett said cautiously. What brings you out here? Got some news, the sheriff said. Garrett Bennett was arrested this morning. Tried to assault a woman in town. Turns out she wasn't the first. Several women came forward once they heard he was in custody. Ila's legs nearly gave out. Rhett steadied her. What does that mean? Isla asked. Means he's going to prison, the sheriff said. For a long time, and your divorce just got a whole lot easier. Judge is willing to grant it immediately on grounds of abuse and criminal conduct. Isla couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. It was over. Truly over. Thank you, Rhett said, his voice thick with emotion. The sheriff nodded. You two take care now. After the sheriff left, Isla turned to Rhett, tears streamed down her face. But she was smiling. It's really over. It's really over, Rhett confirmed. Isla threw her arms around him and laughed and cried at the same time. Rhett held her, spinning her once, caught up in her joy. When they finally calmed down, Rhett cupped her face in his hands. So, Miss Bennett, what do you want to do now? Isla smiled up at him. I want to stay here, with you, if you'll have me. If I'll have you? Rhett repeated incredulously. Isla, I've wanted you to stay since the moment you walked through my door. Then it's settled. Isla said. I'm staying. Good, Rhett said, pulling her close again. Because I wasn't letting you go anyway. They kissed again, this time without fear, without hesitation. This time it felt like a promise, a beginning. The river sang outside, endless and unbothered. The fire crackled in the hearth. And for the first time in her life, Isla felt like she was exactly where she belonged. Home, not a place, but a person. And that person was Rhett Lawson. Spring came to the river ranch like a whispered promise. The air warmed, the trees bloomed, and the world felt new again. The morning smelled of fresh pine and wild flowers. The river ran clear and strong, no longer frozen by winter's grip. Isla stood on the porch watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. 6 months had passed since that night. 6 months since Garrett had been locked away. 6 months since she'd chosen to stay. And in those 6 months, Isla had learned what it meant to truly live. The divorce had been finalized in March. The judge had been sympathetic. The process swift. Isla walked out of that courthouse a free woman, legally and completely. Rhett had been waiting outside, leaning against the hitching post with a quiet smile. How does it feel? He'd asked. Like I can finally breathe. Isla had answered. Now, standing on the porch in the early morning light, Isla realized she'd been holding her breath her entire life, waiting for the next blow, the next angry word, the next moment of fear. But here, with Rhett, she could breathe, deeply, freely. The door opened behind her. Rhett stepped out, 2 cups of coffee in hand. He handed one to her without a word, then stood beside her, shoulder to shoulder. Beautiful morning, Rhett said. It is, Isaiah agreed. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Rhett reached out and took her hand. Isla laced her fingers through his, the gesture as natural as breathing now. I've been thinking, Rhett said quietly. About what? Isla asked. About us, Rhett said. About the future. Isla's heart skipped. And Rhett turned to face her fully. I know we've been taking things slow, and I understand why. You needed time to heal, to figure out who you are outside of fear. I did, Isla said softly. I still do sometimes. I know, Rhett said. And I'm not asking you to rush anything, but I need you to know something. What? Isla asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I love you, Rhett said simply. I've loved you since that first night when you stood on my porch with fire in your eyes, and I'll keep loving you for as long as you'll let me. Isla felt tears well up. Happy tears this time. I love you too, she said. I think I have for a while now. I was just too scared to say it. You're not scared now? Rhett asked with a gentle smile. Terrified, Isla admitted with a laugh. But I'm saying it anyway. Rhett cupped her face in his hands. That's the bravest thing you've ever done. No, Isla said, shaking her head. The bravest thing I ever did was knock on your door. And the smartest, Rhett added. Isla laughed. and Rhett kissed her, soft and slow like they had all the time in the world. Because they did. When they pulled apart, Rhett reached into his pocket. "I have something for you." Easel's eyes widened as he pulled out a small wooden box. "Rhett, before you panic," Rhett said quickly. "This isn't a proposal. Not yet. I know you're not ready for that. And that's okay, but I wanted to give you something. A promise." He opened the box. Inside was a simple silver ring with a small turquoise stone. "This was my mother's," Rhett said. "She gave it to me before she died, told me to give it to someone who mattered, someone who made me believe in second chances." He took the ring out and held it up. "That's you, Isla. You're my second chance. And this is my promise that I'll wait as long as it takes. For you to heal, for you to be ready, for whatever comes next." Isla couldn't speak through her tears. She held out her hand, trembling. Rhett slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "It's beautiful," Isla whispered. "So are you," Rhett said. Isla threw her arms around him and held on tight. "Thank you," she said, "for everything, for saving me, for loving me, for being patient." "You saved yourself," Rhett said, pulling back to look at her. "I just opened the door. You're the one who walked through it. You're the one who chose to stay. You're the one who chose to fight. I couldn't have done it without you," Isla said. "Maybe not," Rhett agreed. "But that's what love is, isn't it? Two people helping each other become who they're meant to be." Isla smiled through her tears. "When did you get so wise?" "Samuel used to say that," Rhett admitted. "Guess his words stuck with me." They stood there on the porch, wrapped in each other's arms. As the sun rose higher, the river sang its endless song. Birds called from the trees. The world kept turning, indifferent and beautiful. But here, in this small corner of it, two broken people had found each other, and in finding each other they'd found something neither thought possible. They'd found home. Later that day, Isla worked in the garden she'd planted behind the house. Tomatoes, beans, herbs, things that would grow and flourish, things that took time and patience, just like her. Rhett came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "Need help?" "Always," Isal said, leaning back against him. They worked together until sunset, their hands dirty, their backs aching, their hearts full. The garden was taking shape, rows of green pushing through the dark soil. Each plant was a small miracle, a testament to patience and care. Isla had never grown anything before. In her old life nothing was allowed to flourish, but here with Rhett everything bloomed. When they finally went inside, Isla looked around the small cabin. It wasn't much, just 4 walls, a hearth, some furniture, but it was theirs. The chairs they sat in, the table where they shared meals, the bed where they held each other through the night. Every object held a memory, a moment of quiet happiness. She looked at the ring on her finger, the turquoise catching the firelight. A promise, not of perfection, but of presence. Not of a fairy tale, but of something real. "What are you thinking about?" Rhett asked, coming up beside her. "About how far I've come," Isla said. "How far we've come." Rhett pulled her close. "And how far we still have to go." "Together," Isai said. "Together," Rhett agreed. That night, as they lay in bed, Isla thought about the woman who'd knocked on Rhett's door all those months ago. Broken, terrified, desperate. She barely recognized that woman now. That woman had been a shadow, moving through the world without truly living in it. That woman had believed she deserved the pain. In her place was someone stronger. Someone who'd faced her demons and won. Someone who'd learned that love didn't have to hurt. That home wasn't a place you were trapped in, but a place you chose. A place you built with your own hands, alongside someone who saw you as an equal. "Rhett?" Isal whispered in the darkness. "Yeah?" he answered, his voice sleepy. "Thank you for seeing me when I couldn't see myself." Rhett pulled her closer. "Thank you for letting me." Isla smiled and closed her eyes. Outside, the river flowed on. The stars wheeled overhead. The world kept spinning. And for the first time in her life, Isla Bennett was exactly where she was meant to be. Not running, not hiding, not surviving. Living. And in the arms of a man who loved her, she finally understood what that meant. She understood that healing wasn't linear. That some days would be harder than others. That scars didn't disappear, they just became part of your story. But she also understood that she wasn't alone anymore. that she had someone who would stand beside her through every storm, every doubt, every moment of fear. The fire had burned down to embers. The night had grown quiet, and in that stillness 2 hearts beat as one. Home, hope, love. They had it all. And the end. If this story of survival, courage, and unexpected love touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe to Wild West Untold Love for more tales of redemption on the frontier. And if a moment or a feeling in this story stayed with you, we'd love to hear it in the comments below. Because sometimes the strongest souls are forged in the darkest places, and the greatest love stories begin with the simplest act of kindness.